Welcome to your CMAP mortgage live stream. A little bit delayed. Obviously, these things happen sometimes, don't they? So we switched over to our other provider, StreamYard, who I think are doing a reasonably good job. It looks okay up there. It looks as though we're going live on YouTube as we speak. So that's good news all around. Hope everybody's well. Got some really good things for you this morning, which I want to share with you. Not an awful lot's happened in the mortgage market again in the last week or so. Lots of activity, of course. Lots of people bulling up the market, which is great to see as well. So, the mortgage market, the house market is doing okay at the moment, actually, touch wood. Let's hope things continue. So what have I got for you this morning? Well, I heard the news this morning of a brand new mortgage product, which is brilliant. It's an equity release product, which allows you to repay 40% of the capital each year. Now that changes everything you think about it logically, because you've got this equity release product whereby you have an interest-only mortgage until you die or go into a care home, but now you can repay the capital up to 40% a year. So over a 3-year period, you get shot of your entire debt. So it's short term now. It's changed all sorts of things. I love it the way the market's changing. Lots of new products, new things coming in. Now, will the exams ever keep up with that? I don't think they will. So it's up to us to keep you up to date with your CPD. So I've got a couple of great topics for you this morning. I've got rests I want to take a look at. I've got some more Zoom tips for you as well. And I've got some stuff on deliberate asset deprivation, which sounds awfully painful. So let's talk about rests then for you. Annual rest, monthly rest, all these things. It's in the CMAP too, and people often get a little bit confused about it because they still talk about annual rest mortgages, which are a weird old thing from the past, really. But I want to talk about this, how these work. So you've got annual rest, monthly rest, or daily rest, which of course all mortgages now pretty much work on that. So I'm calling this mortgage rests. Which is the title for it, is how does the mortgage rest effectively, is what the title is there for you. Hope you can see that clearly on the board there for you. Now I'm going to go back in time now to 1983 when I was a budding mortgage guy in a building society called the London and South of England Building Society, and we were a small little regional society, and we lent on mortgages, of course we did, but this is way before computers would come in. And what happened here is that we had to literally write the mortgage payment in a big ledger. So what we had, as you can appreciate, is we had this great big ledger. So let's just draw a big ledger there for you. Here's my big ledger. Do you know what I do? A great big book with lots of pages in it, with ring binders as well. And what I had to do is write in the customer's mortgage payment each month when they came into the branch to make their payment. So let's just put a few figures on the board for you to make this come to life a bit. Now the customer would have had, and we'll put all sort of a margin down the middle there for you, the customer would have had a mortgage of £100,000, just say for example, and say their mortgage payment was £200. Now this explains how an annual rest mortgage works. So in January, the customer would come into the branch and pay me £200 into their mortgage itself. Now, repayment mortgage, some of that would have been capital, some of that would have been interest. So let's just say for our sakes, 50 quid of that was capital. Now, as you can appreciate, with a daily rest or monthly rest mortgage, you'd be starting to take the capital off the outstanding balance to work out next month's payment or interest payment. But that didn't work in those days. So literally, we waited until they made another payment in February. Another £200 got paid. And then in March, another £200 got paid. It had no effect whatsoever on the outstanding debt. The debt remained the same. Even if they made lump sum payments, the debt remained the same. Now, at the end of the year, though, things changed dramatically, because in December, when they made a £200 payment, we then had to recapitalise the whole thing for the following year. So what we then did is we worked out how much capital they'd paid us over the last 12 months, and £50 over 12 months is 600 quid. So effectively, they paid us £600. So I recapitalised the outstanding mortgage then to £99,400. And then, of course, I then worked out monthly payments, get another 200 quid or so, but they'd be paying less interest now and more capital because the mortgage had been recapitalised. And this happened every year because it was manual. There was no such things as computers. There was a head office, but not down in the branch level. And therefore, as you can appreciate, this annual rest mortgage, as this is known as, means that the outstanding debt is only changed once a year when you recapitalise in the financial year. It had its disadvantages because if the customer wanted to make lump sum payments from the mortgage at any time, he or she would do that, but it wouldn't affect the outstanding mortgage debt until the end of the year. So they had to wait until the December to make the lump sum payments. So you weren't able to do any sort of flexible mortgages like that in those days at all. It was just literally just a straightforward annual rest mortgage. Now, a monthly rest mortgage is where each month, when payments are made, you recalculate the outstanding debt, and the debt will come down slightly by 50 quid each month. But a daily rest one is much more exciting. That's where every day the lender recalculates the outstanding debt. So if any payments are made more than the normal, any lump sum payments are made, the outstanding debt is changed every single day. So suddenly, therefore, you've got flexible mortgages, you've got offset mortgages, you can do all sorts of different types of mortgages, and that's known as daily rest. So annual rest then is where it's changed once a year. You've got monthly rest where it's changed monthly, and you've got daily rest where the outstanding debt is changed on a daily basis. So there we have a little update for you on rest. So that's been useful. Bye. There you go. Do you like that one, did you? Little tip there for you on arrests and things. Okay, let's get on to another topic now for you, which I know you're going to enjoy, and that one's to do with inheritance tax and deliberate asset deprivation. So this is kind of like an equity release topic, but it's also a topic that you need to know about when it comes to CMAT 1 as well. Now, pets, inheritance tax, let's just remind ourselves what these are all about. Now, first thing then, let's put a couple of titles up for us. So we've got inheritance tax and equity release. There you go, that's our sort of title of our little topic today for you. Inheritance tax and equity release. Now, what we're looking at here is the inheritance tax issue. So over here then I've got a property, and this particular property has an inheritance tax problem. Say it's a lovely house and it's worth, I'm going to say it's worth £1 million, 1 million. Now, there may be exceptions, but there's probably going to be inheritance tax to pay on that one. It's owned by one person only, so definitely will be. So let's put our character in there. There she is. She owns the property. So obviously you've got nil rate bands, you've got the main resident bands. So she'll be able to reduce a lot of that before she pays inheritance tax, but there'll be a big IHT bill going. So she decides then to give that property to her son right now. She says, bugger that, she says, I don't want to live here anymore, so I'm going to give this house to my son, Michael. There's Michael there for you. Very happy chappy now because he's got a brand new property, doesn't need to rent anymore. And she gives that to him. Now that's fine, you can do that, but any gift of your estate forms what they call a potentially exempt transfer. So that gift causes or creates a PET, a potentially exempt transfer. And now you've got this 7-year period now, which starts, the clock starts ticking. Because what happens, you see, with inheritance tax is if you give an asset away to somebody and you survive for 7 years, then that's fine. You've given the asset away nice and clean, and it doesn't form part of your estate for inheritance tax. It's known as a PET. But if you were to die during that 7-year period, then a proportion of that asset would still be added to your estate to work out inheritance tax calculations. So it's called a PET. It's a clever thing, really. It stops people basically giving stuff away as they approach their deathbed. Here we are, son, have my house. It doesn't work because that situation, the whole value of the property will be put onto your estate anyway. So that's a PET. Now that's a HMRC thing. That's a Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs thing, who of course need every penny they can get at the moment because they keep spending it on other things. So they need all the tax they could possibly get. And that's great. Now, the argument there, of course, is that would she be able to live in the property whilst the son owns it? No, unless she pays a commercial rent, which has to be a proper tenancy as well, because otherwise it becomes what's called a gift for reservation of benefit or a grob, and therefore it's ignored anyway. Now, on the other hand, though, the lady develops some illness and she needs to go into a care home. So that's the situation. So she's given the house away to her son, and she's living with friends or whatever, but she now needs to go into a care home. So there's your care home there. Nice little property there with little gardens and everything. And to go into a care home, of course, you've got to pay for these things. But she says to the care home people, look, I haven't got any money. I'm living with friends. I'm living on sofa. And my son owns my house. I gave it to him a couple of years ago. So she says, look, Mr. Council, Mr. Local Authority, would you please pay for my care home? And that's fine because she hasn't got any money, she hasn't got any assets. Therefore, the council will foot the bill for her care home costs. Because as you know, if you've got money in the form of a property, which nobody else is living in, or shares, or money, or saved up, or whatever, you've got to use that first to pay for your care home, which makes sense, really, because it should be done that way. And if you've got a house, you'll have to sell the thing to pay for your care home costs. Until, of course, you get down to a certain minimum level of assets when the council will pick up the bill. Now, the problem here, though, is that she's given away the property. So the council turn around and say, hold on there, lady. You deliberately prevented us from taking your property to pay for the care home. So they use what they call deliberate asset deprivation. Deliberate, there you go, asset deprivation. Now, if you've ever dreamt up of a title that's awful, that's probably going to win the gold medal of awful titles, isn't it? You can't even make an acronym out of that, only DAD. It just doesn't work, does it? So basically what it means is that the council have their people whereby they can go back and check to see whether you've deliberately kept any assets away from the council. And they'll go back and say, hold on, you gave your house to your son a couple of years ago. Now, we think that was done deliberately to avoid care home costs. So, we want that house to be sold and paid for the care home. We're not paying the care home costs for you. You're going to have to pay it yourself. You've got a house. And they get lawyers and people to do all of this properly. Therefore, the council have the right to go back as far as they want to get that money. And then go back as long as they want. Now, it doesn't affect the pet for inheritance tax purposes. She's not dead anyway yet, so the 7-year rule's still going. And this, of course, as you can appreciate, this deliberate asset deprivation, which I shall call DAD from now on, is the local council. It's the local council involved here, not HMRC, although ultimately they pay for councils, don't they? The central government. It's a different body, so they're not really worried about whatever you do to the house for the pets. That's down to HMRC. This local council wants to get their money from that house to pay the care home costs. So the two worked hand in hand here. So what would happen is that the pet would carry on, but the council, of course, would take the house over. So the son would have to give the house back, so that kind of kills that gift, doesn't it? It just kind of mixes the two together. I quite like that little case study, actually. It shows how the real world starts to affect things. But for CMAP purposes, remember your IHT and your pets and things for that side of stuff. And for your equity release, remember the deliberate asset deprivation paying for the local authority care home that you got organised for. A nice little story for you. Bye. Ha! Did you like that one, did you? Good. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of final topics for you then. As everyone and their uncle, of course, has been on Zoom again, haven't they? And we're all Zooming all over the place. I'm on Zoom here. I'm using Zoom to record this and send it out. I'm using StreamYard to live stream onto YouTube today. And I'm recording, obviously, and using Zoom all day for different clients. And a lot of mortgage advisors are using Zoom. So I've got for you some more Zoom tips, how to present online to customers using video. And I've got some more up-to-date tips for you. So we've got video presentation tips, is what I'm calling this one. But we're doing more of it, and absolutely right as well. Clients are quite happy for this one. You don't have to go back to physical face-to-face. The first thing is start changing your language. Start calling it face-to-face. This is face-to-face. You just happen to be on a video screen. So when you're giving the client the options, which you should do really, and we operate the time efficiency and more efficiency for you. We operate a online video virtual service here. We can talk to you on the phone if you prefer that, but we could also do face-to-face. And of course what you mean by face-to-face is face-to-video face. So you've got a screen with a face on it, you're a screen on a face on a screen, so it's face-to-face. I know we talk about face-to-face being in the real world, but I think it's just a turn on words, isn't it? Just because you're looking at a computer screen of a face, it's still face-to-face. You can still read eye contact, read facial expressions. You can pick up on how people are feeling by looking at their face, especially if you get some big monitors when you're doing this kind of work. So that's the first one for you as well. The second tip for you is what I call a stable head. A stable head. Now, when you're online face to face with a customer and you're talking to them, they're talking to you, you will want to have yourself a chair, of course, some sort of chair, but you'll want to have it so that your back and your head, it's a very long person there, isn't it? A small face he's got there. So you see, you've got your back to the back of the chair, so your head is stable, so that when you're talking, your head doesn't move around so much. Because if I went a bit closer to the camera now, and I'm going to scare you a bit now, I apologise for this one, but that's about the sort of distance that most people would be on camera. It's about right, isn't it? Where you see my shoulder, but you can see my face. You can see my eyes and my expressions and stuff like that. Any closer would be a bit weird, wouldn't it? And any further back for a video conference is too aloof, really. So on video conference, you'd be about that sort of distance, which for those of you listening on a podcast, you won't be able to know, but it's pretty much half and half. You can see my shoulder and you can see my face. Now, I start to move around now, so if I'm sitting down and my face starts to move around too much, it starts to get very difficult to focus and concentrate. So if you've got a back to your back or chair back, your head is pretty stable. You move around, of course you should. I'm moving around now, and I'm smiling and I'm grimacing and all those good things. But right now my head isn't moving unnecessarily. My body is fairly secure. That's the whole point. Your shoulder. Don't move around too much. Obviously, I'm presenting to camera on a live stream, so I'm standing up and moving around anyway in my studio here. But that's a nice little tip there for you, which I quite like. When you're online, test and summarise often. Test and summarise. When I say test, what I'm talking about here is ask the customer, how does that sound to you? What do you think about that? How does that come over to you? Test them, make sure they're listening. Bit derogatory, make sure they're understanding, make sure they're following you all the time, because people's attention span is not as good on video as it is when you're physically there with somebody. So test them often. How does that sound to you? What does that seem like to you so far, Mr. Brown? I picked up are you picking up what I'm putting down, man? It might be right for a hipster, but I don't think so for a customer. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to summarise often. Have quick summaries. Okay, Mr. Brown, quick summarise what we've been talking about so far in the last couple of minutes, just to pick up on some issues. So test and summarise often is the key, isn't it? So there's a nice little couple of tips there for you. Let's give you some more of these tips while we're on it as well. Here's a couple of hypnotic ones for you, which you might like, actually. I quite like this one. The first one is to seek more feedback from the person that you're talking to. If it's one-on-one, which we talked about there with the testing. But it may well be that you're presenting to a small group of people as well. Maybe a large audience if you're doing Zoom seminars, or a small audience if you're doing more of a workshop or a presentation, or a one-on-one, or one on 2 or 3 people maybe. In that situation, we recommend you use yes tags. Now I'll tell you what a yes tag is. Oops, leave that pen, there it is. It's a yes tag. You may have heard me talk about this before on NLP. A yes tag is where you say something at the end of a sentence to get the customer to nod. And they say to themselves, yes. So you could say, for example, the weather's rather fine, isn't it? Or you could say, for example, we're going to finish at 5 o'clock, aren't we? Or this particular scheme is very popular, isn't it? Or it could be that we're going to be running for about 45 minutes today. Is that okay? So you're using these tags at the end in order to get the customer to nod or to say yes, because you're involving them, you're bringing them into the conversation. It's great on a group scheme because you don't actually get the group to sort of say yes, but you get them to nod in their heads. So this is a really good tip, isn't it? Now everyone's really worried about that, aren't they? And people are sort of yesing, and they're agreeing with you, and therefore they're connecting with you. That's known as a yes tag as well. I like that one. How does that sound, do you think? Don't you? Am I right? I've heard that one be used before on a group basis. Am I right? It's a bits of shady, but it's something you could use as well. The last tip for you is eye contact, which we've talked about before. In fact, we talked about this last week, eye contact. So I don't want to repeat what I said last time. And we talked about eye contact, and the main message really was that when you're giving eye contact on Zoom, don't glare at the lens. Now, I'm pretty much talking to the lens with you here because, as far as I'm aware, you're behind that lens, and there's probably quite a few of you, I don't know, might be only one person listening today, but there might be some hundreds of people behind that lens. So when I talk to you, I regard you as being behind the lens. So that's why I'm talking to the lens now. I'm quite happy to do so, because that's the way I'm operating. But if it's a one-on-one and I've got somebody's picture, so for example, I've got a monitor right above me there, so I can look at somebody's face and look at the lens. And remember last week we talked about gazing. So you gaze between the lens and the person, back to the person again, the lens. So back to the person's face, eyes, back to the lens. So you're gazing one to the other, picking up on the person's image. We gave that to you as a tip. Here's the important thing. When you want to land an important point, make sure you go to the lens. So here's an example. So Mr. Brown, this mortgage that we're organising for you is extremely flexible, and one of the best tips is it allows you to repay the mortgage early. So you're going straight back to the lens for the final major point. So gaze away, but when you want to make the really big point. Now this particular mortgage is highly competitive, but I tell you what, it's not available very often. It might even run out soon. So, to the lens when you want to land a point. Little final point there for you. On eye contact, I'll give loads of Zoom tips there for you because it is the way to do it. Anyway, I think we've come to the end now because we're over 20 minutes or so. Hopefully everybody got to see this live on YouTube or whatever is your choice. I'm trying to get on LinkedIn, by the way. If anyone knows LinkedIn, can they let them approve me? I've been onto LinkedIn, so please would you let me do live streaming using your lovely platform, Mr. Microsoft LinkedIn person, and they have to sort of approve you to do so. So if anyone knows anybody who knows anybody in LinkedIn, can they give me the button of approval so I can start putting this through LinkedIn live as well? Other than that, hope you have a great week, and we'll see you again soon next week.